right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to another episode of Keto Rocks with your host, Jim Hobbs. And to the left, right, or to the bottom, depending on how you're looking at your screen, is Mr. Brian Forsythe. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
How's your week been, brother?
It's been kind of interesting.
Well, how's your new AC working?
Oh, it's working great. I just got my bill today. That wasn't so great.
Yeah, that's not a good part of it. I thought about you. I actually had to get my air conditioned compressor replaced in my car, and I did that on Monday. Luckily, I got a friend who's got a shop, and I went there and we did it. And then last night I was driving it and it wasn't working. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me, because today was supposed to be 95 degrees. Like, I need it today. So I drove it over to him. He was done in 1 minute. I didn't know this, but so for you car aficionados and mechanics, this was news to me that your air compressor can only take so much Freon. And if the pressure on it's more than 8 ounces, it will just cause it to go off. So it had too much Freon in the tank, so to speak. He had to let some of it out, and then it kicked on. He said, "Oh, you're good." So truly thankful that it was nothing more expensive than what I'd already put into it. So, and today it is hot, so I was very appreciative of the AC. I thought about you and going through that little process.
Yeah.
So. Well, welcome everybody. We actually have a guest who's got Mr. Chris Hubner, who's got a great story to tell. He's got comes from he's also, you were a licensed practitioner too, correct? What was your license?
Yeah, since last September 2019, I'm no longer licensed, but I was a licensed professional counselor, LPC, through the state of Texas. And that's a whole nother story too. I basically saw what was going on, so I let my license expire purposefully because I no longer wanted to be limited by the state as to how I could treat my clients. So
Gotcha.
Right.
Well, you hear Brian and I talk about all the time and referring to that. Don't get mad at the doctor for the doctor not knowing what you may have found out on your own research and these different keto or carnivore sites to go to and hear different doctors like Dr. Ken Berry or any of the other ones out there. But just know that when we say there are stories that, like Dr. Ken Berry, comes under scrutiny and under pressure and goes through, it takes a lot of courage to step up and out and to vocally speak against what Big Pharma is wanting you to push. And so you hear us talk about it, but I want you to hear a real story, how it really impacted Chris's father and what he did. So Chris, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let you take the floor, and we're just going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
All right, cool. Okay, yeah, so I'll start. My dad, well, first of all, I was born in Galveston, Texas. My dad was a physician's assistant. My mom was a registered nurse, so they met in the medical field. So my family comes from a long line of doctors, nurses, physician's assistants, all different stuff. My dad's dad was actually a famous surgeon in Beaumont, which is South Texas. And then my dad was a PA, and then he decided he wanted to become a doctor. So he moved the family from Galveston up to Fort Worth, Texas, where there's a medical school, which is pretty well known, called TCOM. And so he became a DO. And there's a difference between a DO and an MD. A DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and MD is a medical doctor. The difference is that a DO is taught how the body heals itself. They do manipulation, which is better. It's not just being a chiropractor. They actually know how everything works together. So my dad knew manipulation. He knew cranial, like how to do the head, how to do, like he knew all different kind of adjustments. He actually studied how the body heals itself. So that was his background, right? So my dad wasn't just an MD. He wasn't just prescribing drugs. He knew how the body heals itself. So he became a doctor. He worked in small towns. Bridgeport was the first place he worked. And then he opened his own clinic after some years in Springtown, Texas, which is about 45 minutes west of Fort Worth. And he had a thriving practice where he built it up was just starting to do really, really well. And everything was taken off. All his years of hard work were finally coming to fruition. His dream of being a doctor, of helping people, was all coming true. He was the only doctor in this town. He owned his own clinic, so he was a family doctor, working with kids, adults, everybody. And then he started, this is in the mid 90s, then it gets to the late 90s, and that's when the medical field, if y'all don't know the history, I guess you could look it up, but that's when the medical field was basically hijacked from doctors, or it was already going on through the 80s a little bit, late 80s, like through the 90s, but especially in the late 90s, that's when the big shift happened, where insurance companies basically took over the medical field, to where doctors do not make a lot of decisions. It's all based on money. So they started sending my dad, or insurance companies started not reimbursing my dad because he was giving too good of care, and he wasn't recommending or giving a lot of referrals to psychiatrists, because as my dad said, he's never met a sane psychiatrist. No, he said he met one. He met one sane psychiatrist. So why do you want them giving you drugs if they're crazy themselves? Why would you want them to prescribe you medication? So my dad said he met one sane psychiatrist, so he didn't really feel comfortable sending a lot of his patients to psychiatrists all the time, especially if it was a medical issue that he knew they could solve. So basically the Harris HMO, which is a health maintenance organization, started trying to force my dad to give less care to his patients, to try to outsource more of his care, because apparently he was too good of a doctor, making too much money. So they were like ripping him off, basically. So he hired a lawyer and sued Harris HMO because like he was losing so much money, his practice was going to go under, basically. So he was like, has no other options. So he stood against him, and he wasn't really with anybody, their doctors. He just decided to do it himself. But the lawyers took the case because they knew they could win, because he had a great case. It was like, so he won, he beat Harris HMO, or won. The problem was he made him look bad, because he was being interviewed by NBC News talking about he took the Hippocratic Oath, like do no harm, and that's what he's in there to do. And so he basically called him out, like, these guys suck. They're harming patients. Like, he called it out, like, on NBC News. So, like, basically he was on their hit list from then on. So he won this, and then he took him to court. That made him look even worse, and like humiliated him, and won. And they owed him a bunch of money. So guess what happens? Like, so the lawyers start demanding the money, and so what do the HMOs do? They just start delaying it, because they have unending money. They just delay, and guess how much money my dad got? He got not a penny from the suit that he won. Not a penny. In fact, he owed all his lawyers money. So
he's in a worse financial shape than he was before he decided to go after the people who was putting him in that position.
Oh, yeah. So he lost his practice. Like, he was screwed at that point. Like, he got no money from them. He owed his lawyers a bunch of money. His practice basically just went under. Like, or he just didn't have enough money to run his practice anymore. So
Chris, let me pipe in here. So just so people hear this correctly, I want, and you have the insight because it was your father, so I'm sure you were very familiar with what was going on.
Right.
So is there protocol? Is the protocol come? Because I don't know. I'm asking you for everybody who's watching this. Does the protocol to follow come from the insurance companies, or does it come from the medical board, or who controls what? Who's telling you to do what? Who makes the decision? Who pulls the purse strings?
Oh, it's all insurance now. I mean, it used to be like kind of split, but it ain't been that way since the late 90s. So it's totally changed. I mean, it's total insurance. Insurance makes all the decisions. People that have never been to medical school make the decisions. My dad went to all that trouble to go to medical school, 4 years, study his butt off, and he's making that's what he realized. Like, I have no control. If this happens, I'm going to be making no decisions, to the point where my sister was wanted to go to medical school to become a doctor. And my dad told her, be a PA. I should have never become a doctor. That was the biggest dang mistake of my life. He was told so he talked my sister out of becoming a doctor. And he said, you can make fine money as a PA, not as much as a doctor, but you have so much less liability that you'll be fine. So my dad and my sister is a PA to this day, and she became a PA. You only have to do 2 years of school instead of 4 years, and you're under doctors. So the doctor's taking all the heat, and you just make them, you just get your salary or whatever, but you're not the fall guy, basically. So like, yeah, so you don't make you have no, like, I mean, even in the mental health field, when I was in LPC, I realized, like, dude, that's why they made the DSM, so they can, like, make you label people so they can get them on all the drugs. Like, I did it for, like, 7 years, but I saw through the system, like, right away. Like, totally ridiculous. Like,
so
totally
ridiculous. Let's talk about that, Chris. So let's talk about from what you were started to. So they would, and I'm just throwing this out there. So they would tell you that, look, you got to hit a certain amount of your patients better be diagnosed with this designation.
Well, in order to treat them at all, like they have to have some sort of diagnosis to treat any patient in a lot of practices. Like I worked for a youth, an agency, which was more like, was mental health. And while I was getting my degree and getting all my hours, I worked there. And it was social work, but then I got into this, like, it was basically social work / counseling, where we went into the homes of the families. And we also it was not just the typical type of therapy. It was unconventional, where we would take kids out into the community, get them engaged in community activities. We didn't have to sit in an office. We could go play basketball and talk to them. I could sit in the car. They could be sitting next to me driving, asking them way more comfortable than sitting face to face, which is stupid, like the traditional counseling way anyway. Like side to side means you're on the same side, like I'm not better than you, which is like what most of my clients realize. I never treated them like, oh, you're just my patient. Like we're on the equal level, right? Like I'm not the professional. I'm just here to help you solve your own problems, basically. So, yeah, so what they didn't like was that, if a client signed up for a year of counseling and they're fine after 6 months, they just lost 6 months of revenue. Because, like, I'm doing my job too well. So then it's like, oh, they don't need their drugs anymore. They don't need their stupid bipolar label. Like, because what they're doing, they changed ADHD. Used to be the real popular diagnosis, but bipolar is way more serious. But you got them, then you rope them in for because then they're eternal patients, because that's on their permanent record, bipolar. And it says in their own DSM says you cannot diagnose bipolar until somebody's fully grown, like 18, 19. And they're diagnosing, I kid you not, kids 10, 11, and 12 bipolar. And they're freaking not bipolar, bro. And I'm like, how can I be a part of this stupid system that's labeling this kid bipolar when he's like 10 years old or 11? The kid's hyperactive. He's bored out of his mind because school's super boring. So he can't sit in that stupid desk and listen to one person talk about nothing all day long. Because this kid is way smarter than all the other kids in his class. And you're holding him back and making him be like he has to be like all the other kids. Well, he's way smarter. So why don't you put him in like a harder class, or not make him sit there and listen to your boring self talk all day long? Because I had to sit in all these meetings, all these pretentious meetings with all these principals and superintendents, and listen to them spout nonsense to they don't have no idea what they're talking about.
Because so you basically have to prescribe something that really numbs them down. Somebody who has all the potential in the world.
It's ridiculous. Because all the clients I worked with, I kid you not, were way smarter than all the other kids in their class. They didn't even need to go to school. They would get suspended all the time, and they made better grades than everybody else. And the stupid STAR test that Texas does, the standardized testing, they would miss like half the year of school and make better. They would get accommodated for the STAR test because they're bored out of their freaking minds with school. And so they're getting all these. The systems they all work together. So the school system's like, oh, this kid can't sit still. The parent doesn't want to take any responsibility for it because it can't be their parenting that's causing this kid to do anything. So instead of dealing with the problem and dealing with their emotions, let's numb these kids out, because they're the only sane kid in their family, because that kid is crying out for help while all the rest of the family is acting like everything's okay. And so the sane kid gets labeled the black sheep of the family, and they get all the drugs, and they get labeled the bipolar. It happens all the time. So like when I'm working in it, because I know I worked in it like 7 years, I already seen it like every day of my life. When I was doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I would be like, I'd look at the face sheet of like what this kid's doing, right, and like what he's labeled. I'd be like, oh, this sounds interesting, like wonder why he's labeled this. Go into the house, oh, kid's Jack, totally normal. Any kid would do this in this situation, like because the parents don't, you know, so it's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so. You're actually spot on, because my grandson, he's 7, and he literally is since he was born like a genius. And of course, they diagnosed him exactly what you said, exactly what they said. And he's only 5.
Oh, dude, they start early, bro. Yeah, and then they predispose your brain to recreational drugs, because what they're doing is they're messing with the chemicals in your brain. So later you're predisposed to all these other drugs, because you won't even feel normal, because your brain will become immune to it almost, because it's like, then they keep having to up the dosage, because you're processing it too fast, you're metabolizing it too fast. So then you won't even feel normal anymore. And then that's when people get into all the, one of my first clients was a meth addict, because he was in the same exact situation, and they started him on drugs when he was like 5 or 6 years old, and he was 17, and now he was a meth addict, because he didn't feel normal anymore, because he knew uppers, downers. This dude knew everything about drugs, everything. So wow, he should have been a pharmacist. Pharmacists are only legal drug dealers, you know, like that's all it is. Psychiatrists are legal drug dealers. They're prescribing. It's just like if I went and got a prescription for cocaine or heroin, it's the same thing, man. Like, don't let them kid you. They are legal drug dealers.
So let me ask you a question. So what we have you on here, and we're honored to have you on here. What would you recommend to somebody who has a child that fits the categories you're talking about? So what should they do if they have a child who they've taken to a therapist and they get this diagnosis? What other options do they have? What do you recommend?
I mean, like the same situation happened to me. They tried to, like, I was at a private school. They were like, look, your kid's out of control. Like, you need to get him diagnosed. So they told my mom, your kid must be like ADHD or something. And I'll give credit to my mom. She just didn't believe him, because she's like, oh, because I was in Montessori at first, and I was a genius. Like kindergarten through 4th, I'm a genius. 5th and 6th grade, I was homeschooled. So like, and then 7th grade, I started private school, where that's the first time I ever sat in a freaking desk in 7th grade. And I remember being in the class looking around like, oh my gosh, like, are we going to sit here and listen to this person talk all day or what? I'm like, dude, this is stupid. And everybody's like, they all seem to be thinking everything's fine with it, because they've been doing this for however many years. And I'm just like thinking, I'm in a nut house, man. This is crazy. So they thought I was crazy, and I thought they were crazy. So the thing you can do is you need to get your kid, if they can't sit still in class, you need to get them in like gifted and talented programs, or like challenge them. Like, don't numb them down. Don't put them in a regular classroom. Get them in like the hardest subjects, like hardest classes you can, or give them an outlet. They have to have an outlet, like for creativity. Get them in like art, or sports was good for me. Like I played sports all growing up. That helped a lot. Like having physical activity, because like if your mind goes 24/7, which like if you're really smart, you're going all the time. You need an outlet in order to relax. You need something that you can have creative energy with and be inventive. So the reason that I like Montessori, which I think if Montessori was throughout every school, there wouldn't be any freaking need for any of it, because Montessori is great because you have stations and you go learn on your own. And it's not like, oh, you're cheating because you're like asking you can like learn together. You can learn in groups, like how real life is, like go figure. Oh no, it's cheating if you like help each other with, like, that's stupid. Because like when you go to a job, you gotta like have teamwork. When you go play sports, you gotta have teamwork. That's why sports was way better than freaking school, because you actually have to learn how to work with other people. But in school, it's all about your individual talent, and like I can sit here and like regurgitate what I memorized yesterday. That's stupid. So it's like Montessori teaches you how to learn, and it teaches you how to think for yourself. I think the main thing that society is, the main problem with schools is they don't teach kids how to think for themselves. And really smart kids, they're going to think for themselves whether people are telling them to or not, because you don't believe everybody and you don't think they have any idea what they're talking about. Because they're trying to tell you something and you're like 10 steps ahead of them. You're just waiting for them to say something. And so like they need to be challenged. They need something hard. They need to be maybe skip some grades, start getting college credits like super early, like Doogie Howser off that like old show. Like he became a doctor when he was like, 12 or 13. Cause like, dude, seriously, like after I did Montessori, like I could have freaking started college like way earlier. I didn't need any of high school. High school was a huge waste of time. Like a lot of it's a waste of time. All you really need to do is learn how to read, write, add, subtract. And what else? Like, there's not much you need to learn in school. Like, you could freaking finish after like elementary. Read, write, because you got calculators. Like, maybe you could learn some financing and like how to get along. Like, maybe some. Dude, school is a big freaking waste of time for most people. Like, people need to go out and work and get a work ethic and learn how to make money and quit sitting around. The least successful people in school make the most money because they're bored out of their minds, dude. So it's like, I don't know. It's just a big shame.
I wonder how many people have come to that conclusion since the whole country's been shut down and a lot of people have to be homeschooled. I think they probably realize that there's not as many hours. The American kid has to get sent off at dark 30 to a building where they pump them full of sugar.
The babysitting institution is what it is. Like,
right. And they pump them full of sugar, then they ask them to sit into a seat for 8 hours or however long it is now. I don't know.
Diet is another thing, like what you probably talk about, the keto, like people eat like trash. Like, oh, dude, I had a client. Well, dude, quit freaking eating at McDonald's every day. Maybe you'll do better in life. Like, dude, all we did is change his diet. Like, I had this brain, like, This Is Your Brain on Joy, Dr. Amen, where he talks about, he does SPECT scans where it shows your brain, like, where you're malnutrition. And I'm like, oh, dude, sounds like you maybe need to eat some blueberries and like try some like smoothies instead of freaking McDonald's. And then lo and behold, his head stopped hurting so much. Oh my gosh, like I'm a genius. All I told you to do was eat some fruit and quit eating all this greasy fat food all day long and sugar. Like, it's common sense, bro. It's not like I'm not a genius, like in that regards. Like, it's just common sense. Don't eat sugar cereal before school. Don't eat Cocoa Puffs before you go to school. Like, stupid. Like, how stupid can we be and still breathe? Don't eat Lucky Charms every day. Like, come on, dude. It's not hard. It's not
Brian talks about processed food and how terrible it's for us all the time. And
Jeez,
Brian, you got any questions?
You can light on fire that has like kerosene in it. I mean, come on, dude. It's a joke, man.
Well, you bring up a lot of valid points, and I think people need to hear this because it's the reason why the best physician is going to be you, to go out there and do your own research, and learn. And I tell you, and Brian will say this, but there's so many people out there who have physical issues, but as soon as they go carnivore or keto, it's amazing how many of the issues which they were being prescribed, the number of medications that they were on, all of a sudden goes away when the inflammation goes down because you're eating the proper food that your body really needs, or in the case of, feeding your brain the right fats so it can fire and think and can do what it was intended to do, but you cannot feed it crap and expect it to be able to think. So, Brian, you got any questions or anything you want to ask Chris? Because I know this is all stuff we've talked about in the past.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to hear it, from that perspective, from actually going through it. having to deal with the profession like that. It's scary. It's just scary to, when you come to that realization, it's all about profit. It has nothing to do with health or anything, just money.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's good, like, now, because all the crap that's going on, it's quite obvious that that's what it's about, right? Like, it's very obvious.
It is to some people, but
right.
Not everybody.
I guess that's true. But I think more people do realize, I mean, I think more than before actually can tell. Like, maybe not, of course, not everybody. I don't even know if it's a majority, but it's like, dude, how obvious do you need it? Like, it's pretty stinking obvious.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, we joke about this, but this is how my mom was. My mom believed that if you had a doctor before your name, and I'm not no discredit to anybody who's a doctor, but they knew more than I knew. No matter what I would go out and research or find, or no matter what I would experience on my own, I was told that I needed to follow that doctor's protocol. And I know a lot of people grew up in that same way. And because of that, and because they trusted, they grew up trusting what their doctor was giving them as advice to follow, they then believed that they had to be on this drug for life. So the doctor says, well, we're going to have to get you an insulin pump, or we're going to have to remove your leg. You're going to do the insulin pump. And then so, and one of the things you said that really just spoke truth to me is the fact that I had a doctor that I went to. He wanted to refer me to all these other specialists in the area. And I said, well, no, my wife wants to send me to Johns Hopkins. He said, well, I said, can you write me a referral to Johns Hopkins? He says, oh, no. We do everything internal here. I'm not going to write you a prescription. So he's telling me that he's not going to do that because we do everything here. Yet I'm going, that's great. When it's your money and you're paying for that, you do that. I want to go to Johns Hopkins because they're the ones that are going to administer the test of what my wife wants me to do. And
right, exactly. Like whatever happened to customer service or the Hippocratic Oath, or that they work for you. They're like, and said doctors that they tell you what to do. Well, dude, I'm coming to you and paying you. Like, no, you work for me, bro. Like, even when you have babies, they want to give them all these vaccines when the baby's. I'm like, dude, no. Like, freaking no, you're not going to give my just born baby a vaccination. Like, thanks, Bill Gates, you genius. You think you want to vaccinate everybody? Like, dude, are you crazy? Like, that's stupid. And then I had, when I was working in social work, they're like, they got upset at me because I told them my kids aren't vaccinated. Oh my gosh, I'm like, well, all your kids are vaccinated, so we should be fine, right? And they're like, oh, it's people like you. Oh, so what are people like me? People that actually think. Oh, so like people that think for themselves, that's like me. Like, I'm just like a different person because like I choose, because I actually do the research. My wife and I like actually do the research and like know what we're talking about. And so, it's just people with knowledge that don't just listen that everybody should be vaccinated. Oh, it's Bill Gates, dude. He like made computers. He knows you should be like, dude, come on, bro. Like, he ain't Bill Gates ain't no doctor. Like, it's just some rich dude that's like thinks he can do whatever he wants. Like, no. Like, people, that's why people just got to stand up. It is scary, I guess, but like, dude, if enough people stood up and just quit like letting people just tell you have to do all this stuff, I mean, give me a break, man. Like, how come nobody has any backbone or no spine, and we just got to like cower down and be bullied all the time? Like, when I was in school, you hit the bully in the face and you bully the bully and he don't bully you anymore. Like, so how come nobody wants to stand up to anything these days? Like, I don't get it. I just want to get punched around and bullied my whole life. That sounds stupid.
I think one of the problems is people don't realize they're being bullied.
Oh, I guess that's true. I don't know.
I think they're just going along with the crowd because they think that's the way it is. They don't really realize being railroaded.
Yeah. I look at it as bullying. Maybe they just look at it, it's just like normal life. Everybody does it. So
yeah, but you lived it. I mean, there's some people who I know, they're fine with taking the 35 pills they got to take every day. They're fine with, wearing the insulin pump. Mm-hmm. They're fine with with, having their toe amputated, all that
Or
stuff
just
that
like
they go
cancer treatment, they're fine being chemotherapy. Like cancer was solved like long time ago, bro. Like, but it's $1 billion industry, so we got to keep giving people like chemotherapy for cancer.
Right.
Like what? So you're radiating somebody and killing them faster than they were already dying? Like, what are we talking about? That's archaic, bro.
Yeah, and just so you hear what Chris is saying, yeah, it is archaic because people need to go do their own research and see the success rate of chemo treatments. It's very low. I mean, it really, and I'm not trying to take away hope from people who are going through that right now.
Right.
What I'm telling you is you have the ability to eat the foods that will put your body in the best possible position to fight anything that your body can be dealing with. That goes for all things.
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy is your body has the ability to fight off anything if you give it the right stuff. Your body is designed by God to fight anything.
Right.
So all you have to do is give it the tools to fight it. Your body's not designed to succumb to anything. Corona-19, I mean, even if the coronavirus, like, dude, whatever, bro, you have an immune system. Like, build your immune system and you will fight it. Dude, I've lived overseas. I lived in Grenada 3 years, in the Caribbean. I lived in East Africa for 2 years. Did I get sick? I've been to Mexico a bunch of times, been to Nicaragua. Yes, I've been sick in all those places. But guess what? After a few days, my immune system kicks it out. So, like, give me a break with all that stuff. Like, I mean, give me a break. So I don't want to hear about, I'm going to get some virus. Like, dude, go to Mexico, eat some lobster, some barbecue lobster, and sit on the pot for 2 weeks and then get back with me. Or go to Nicaragua and be coming out of both ends for like 3 days and lose 10 or 20 pounds in like 3 days and then get back with me. Don't be telling me I'm going to die because of some dude. I already seen all that. I lost 10 pounds in like 2 or 3 days already. But guess what? I'm still alive. Like, probably I had some weight to lose anyway because I probably was kicking out all this crap from the American diet. Because guess what? My wife's from Grenada. They never had cancer until they imported food from America.
Yeah.
No, never heard of cancer in Grenada because they walked everywhere. They ate fresh fruits and vegetables. And then they started, let's get some American food. Worst decision you can ever make. And England won't even let you bring American food into the country because they know processed food, like it's a whole system. They give you the processed food, you get the cancer, you go to chemotherapy. It's $1 billion industry. It's ridiculous. Without cancer, the whole medical industry as we know it would go under. Like, give me a break. I'm done with it. Like, dude, forget about it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is.
So,
Well, I'm glad you're very choice in your words, Chris. I wish you were more open with how you really felt.
I'll try to hold back a little bit. I mean, I'll try to like be more.
You're good. No,
I am what I am, man. I am what I am.
No, I want you to be who you are, and I love the fact that I think people need to hear. I think people need to hear, especially somebody who lived through it and experienced it. So,
Right.
I didn't go to medical school. I didn't go through that. I've read the stories of like Ken Berry and others who literally the governing body comes down on them because they're not following the protocol in which they should follow. You lived through that. Your father lived through it. Your father was a pioneer and standing up to big pharma. And I totally respect anybody who does that. But I think, and I'm not saying fairness, but these doctors people who want to become a doctor to help people go through and rack up at a huge amount of student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally get their dream where they have their own practice or working in a practice. The last thing they want to do in the first year or two is be told that, hey, you're not following protocol here. Do you want to lose your license or get fined? And so I think it's almost like some of them, they're so far in debt that they got to make that choice. Like, I got a family support.
Everybody
do I keep doing this or do I?
Right.
And so like your father made the choice and unfortunately was forced to go another path. And that's the tragedy that's happening here. And not only that, but the number of people who still rely on that medical profession for their best interests. I just want everybody to know that your best interest is not being being given not because the doctor consciously or unconsciously is more than likely the issue. He's only teaching what he was taught. It's the people who program the teaching and enforce the rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an indoctrination. Like, and I mean, they're indoctrinated, and the good doctors that fought against it are pretty much all gone. Or a lot of, I mean, there's a few, like you said, that have fought against it or found a way around it. But like, I mean, they're far and few between, like right now. So, because you got to sacrifice that your consciousness, or not, maybe sometimes you got to sacrifice your morals to make the money. Because somebody was asking me, could you be making like more money if you like had just stuck with it? Could you make, I mean, you got your master's, you got, you know, you did all those hours, couldn't you be making like 90, 100? I was like, yeah, but like, screw that, screw the money. Because I got to sacrifice all, I want to sleep at night. Like, I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for my clients, to help them and to help them be free. I'm not in it to make a bunch of money off them.
Well,
like, whatever.
I think what you said earlier, Chris, I think what this show is all about is really helping people to see the other side of the coin, and to get them to go out there and do their own research, and to realize that maybe, just maybe, what they were told wasn't necessarily what was in their best interest.
Right.
And a lot of the issues that we see, you know, Brian had talked about this before in regards to this plant-based meat that's out there. This plant-based meat now, which is filled with process and chemicals. And I just sent Brian the ingredients of one package I picked up, and I don't think there's anything healthy for you, but it's marketed as this ultimate healthy food, you know,
healthy
for people.
Choice. Yeah.
Healthy choice. And for the people who have gone vegan or vegetarian because they believe what they have been taught or told by the big marketing machine, then, well, why were they told that? Now all of a sudden there's a whole industry about recreating what was already naturally created, meat. Now we're going to invent meat with a bunch of processed chemicals. And guess what that processed chemicals does? It's going to cause you to have to go see a doctor and then deal with the issues that are going to arise because of the chemicals you're putting in your body, even though those chemicals are being marketed, as Brian just said, heart healthy or healthy alternative, when there's nothing more healthier than a T-bone steak that's been grass-fed.
Where the list of ingredients just says meat or beef.
That sounds way better anyway. It sounds like it would taste better too.
Yeah.
You know, it's so sad. I was meeting with somebody today, and he's telling me about his wife who's got problems. And I was telling him about the keto diet and all that. He's like, oh, yeah, but she can't have all that because of the salt. She's got to be on low salt. And I go, because of her blood pressure. And I said, look, I know I'm no doctor, but I'm just telling you, she needs to research that. That's really not the issue. She can have salt, just like I hear people say, well, I can't have eggs because of the cholesterol. And if there's so many myths. Yeah, there's just so many myths, but you know, the media, the marketing machine, the big pharma, they control the schools. They control. They're in bed with the food industry, and you put all that together, you really are fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like, but the knowledge. I mean, I think you're. Like baby boomers generation is like, that was the deal. Like you watch the news, but like millennials, they don't care because they got the internet. So like, oh, screw you. Like, I know just as much as you. I can just look, but I can YouTube it. And so somebody's trying to tell them something like a doctor. They're like, dude, I just watched a YouTube video on that. Like they already know more than like, I know more than they feel like they know more than them. So it's like, it's kind of like, I'm kind of like, they call our generation Generation X, like right in the middle. So like we got like just the start of the internet, like the late 90s, but we also live life like without the internet. So I understand both perspectives from my parents' generation, but I also understand millennials. Cause like, so somewhere in the middle is like kind of where I see it. It's like, I get that you think you have to like follow all this advice, but the information is out there. Like if you really want the information, you can get it, and you don't have to go to a doctor. Trust me, I haven't had a doctor. Like my dad was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. Do you think we ever went to the doctor? Like I don't remember ever going to the doctor. Like I've been to the hospital once. Like, and then sometimes they ask you, who's your I'm like, dude, I don't got a doctor. Who's your family doc? Like, who's your family? Like, I don't know. How long has
You're
it been?
looking at him. You're looking at my family
20
doctor.
years?
I am my own
know.
doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Like, dude, whatever. And I guess I'm thankful that I grew up from the perspective, I don't care. Like, whatever, dude. I'm 41, never been to the doctor, hardly ever gone to the doctor in my life. I'm fine, man. The one time I went, like a few years ago, when we had to have Obamacare, like required insurance, I was like, oh, try this out. Went there, they did a bunch of blood work. All he told me was like, oh, it looks like you could exercise more. So I had to come to you, and you took all this blood work just so you tell me I can. Oh, you should probably exercise. Oh, well, thanks, buddy. Like, stupid. Why would you take all my blood and then say, oh, well, looks a little high. You're like, oh, something about my cholesterol. I'm like, oh, maybe you should exercise more. I was like, maybe you should go get re-educated, bro. I was like, I'm never going to go. After that, I was like, I'm never going back to the doctor, dude. You crazy?
Well,
that was the dumbest thing I've ever been through. So
I think the thing that you can do if you do go see a doctor is, do like you were talking about earlier, Chris, when you got the person sitting beside you, not in front of you in an office, to say, hey, look, and just become peers. Make it a win-win for both the doctor and the patient. So
that's good advice. Maybe I'll take that next time.
Yeah.
I've had some. If there's the next time, I don't know.
Brian, man. How do you treat your doctor? I know how you treat the one, but
what doctor? Same thing.
There you go.
I don't have a doctor. I don't have insurance. It's like, right. So the last insurance I had was when I lived out in LA, and the only insurance I could afford was like the lowest of the low. I forget how much my deductible was, something ridiculous, but I ended up with Kaiser Permanente, which is the worst. And somebody told me, I remember talking to somebody and they had it and they go, oh, wow, that's the best. And then I realized why they thought it was the best, because it's like a factory. You go there and everything's, I don't know if you're familiar with that insurance company, but
oh yeah.
Yeah, they've got their own facility. You go there, you see the doctor, then you go downstairs to the lab, you get all your stuff. So everything's like included in this one little package. And like, I guess a normal person would find that like really
attractive.
Cool.
So they didn't drive across town. It's a one-stop shop. We'll draw your blood.
Yeah, it's like going through the car wash. But they did all the regular tests, and then I come back and it's this really young doctor, this woman she was like 23 years old. So she's fresh out of medical school. So she's going to go by all the rules. And she's telling me, I mean, I've never been healthier. And
yeah, it's crazy.
She rattles off that list, oh, you need to eat more whole grains and fruit. You need to, exercise and this and that. And I'm like, wait, did you even look at me? Like, I only weigh like 128 pounds and I'm like pure muscle. I have no fat on my body, but and
I'm never sick.
Well, and yeah, I haven't been sick in, I don't know, decades, but, she looks at my cholesterol and thinks that I need to go on a statin and all that stuff that they're supposed to do. And I'd already done the research. So I already knew about statins. I know about cholesterol. I know what it's supposed to be. And I said, so I asked for a couple additional tests. I said, well, if you're going to put me on a statin, then I want to get these other tests done first. And she was like, well, no, we don't do that test at our lab. And I'm like, what? I mean, that's the response I got. So, long story short, I never went back to the doctor. And then, you know, when I moved to Tennessee, I just, you know, had to cancel that insurance because it was California. And I just never got another insurance company. I never found a doctor. I was going to go to Dr. Barry, but his practice shut down. So I'm sort of in limbo, but it's not like I need a doctor. I just do my own labs. I go get them done.
Perfect.
But,
I mean, there's, like you're saying, there's alternatives. You don't actually have to do traditional, like the same.
Yeah, you can go your labs. My wife tried to schedule for me to have. I think I've tore my rotor cuff, and my left shoulder. Yeah. It's been. I mean, when I roll over at night, I will wake up in just pain. So it's just. My wife said, "Okay, if you're not gonna, you can't get that better," because she gives me a chance to meditate and do my thing. Because I do. I haven't gone to the doctor, and it's worked ever since on everything else I've had.
Yeah.
So, but listen to this. So she calls the doctor, and they said, "Who do you have health care?" She said, "No, we just want to pay for it. We don't accept prepay. You have to." And so, and you know, one of the things you said earlier, Chris. When you go to the doctor, you say, I don't have a physician. Oh, well, then we need to go ahead and schedule you with a local physician and have you checked out first before we can prescribe. Or, I mean, we got to get you indoctrinated into the system so we can get you a number. So then we can then tell you the different specialists.
I think they don't like me because I'm not in the system. So I'm like, I'm not in it. Like, sorry.
Well, that's the other thing. It's a big racket, you know, with the insurance. They don't want to deal with somebody that's just going to pay for it because they like overcharge the insurance companies because it's like this whole thing that they go through, you know, the money thing.
Yeah, most people don't realize, like we do have a thing called Liberty Health Share. So it's a share plan. So we pay $350 a month for my wife and I. That's total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's really, I'll tell you about that later, Brian. So anyway, because it'd be cheaper just for you. But anyways, $350. And the reason why I went to that route is they do cover 100% after I have a $1,700 deductible, basically. But after that, it's 100% for everything. But when we have our own business, when you had pay for health insurance, it's like $1,000, which is $12,000 for a year. And then you got like a $12,000 or $14,000 deductible before they'll pay out anything. So I'm literally giving them $24,000, even under Obamacare, or whatever it's called now. I don't know, even under that circus, I'm paying the industry $24,000 before I've received anything. And it's like people go, yeah, but don't you have insurance? I go, but what does insurance give you? It's an illusion that you somehow have insurance, that all of a sudden you have health. No, why don't you give your body health, and then you won't need insurance like Brian's doing and what you're doing, Chris. So why not just give your body health, support your immune system by what you put in your body, and you won't need that. I can tell you $12,000 could probably get you through a lifetime of going to LabCorp and getting blood drawn and looking at your own numbers.
Yeah, you can take that $12,000 and go buy like a half a cow.
Right, perfect.
You could buy a whole pasture of cows, right? I just,
dude, exactly. Well, to show you how big a scam it is, I was living in East Africa, Uganda, and had to get my wisdom teeth taken out. And like there, it's a cash-based system. And people were like, "Oh my gosh, why would you get your teeth taken out in Africa?" It was 30,000 shillings for a doctor trained in the UK, which is basically $15 US.
Wow.
It was $15 to $20 US to get my wisdom teeth taken out. 2 wisdom teeth. It's like, I think it was like 40,000 shillings, which would be equivalent to $15 or $20. And he's a doctor trained in the UK. So it just shows you it's a huge scam. And here, to get wisdom teeth taken out, it's like thousands. Totally ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I mean that's another industry that's actually cropped up. It's called vacation medical or whatever it's called. I had a friend of mine who's an attorney,
right,
who needed a process here. I think it was going to cost him $30,000 here in the States, and he could go to the Bahamas and go to this clinic, stay there in a week, and it only cost him $5,000 total. Plus, he's hanging out in the Bahamas for a week. He saved
That's
himself
lovely.
$25,000 by hanging out in the Bahamas for a week. That's just
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah, I love that
You're paying
idea. That's what I
$30,
would
and you're
do.
paying $30 for wisdom teeth. Even if you got to pay, I don't know how much it costs you to go to Africa, but let's just say it's
Yeah.
$1,500.
It's still cheaper. and think about this, dude. If you ever get, like, my recommendation is, if you get something serious like cancer, go somewhere else and get treated. Like, don't stay in America. Like, go somewhere, like, until America gets it. Like, you can go overseas. You can go to Mexico, just south of Texas, and get way better treatment than you can get in the U.S. There's so many alternative solutions to the problems, and that, like you said, the Caribbean, Mexico, Europe, everybody goes to Germany, like all over Europe. But America is just been bought. It's just a greed-based system for so long, and it's ridiculous. Like in Africa, it's in your face, like you can tell what's going on, and in America, it's been hidden for far too long, and darkness is coming into light because it's becoming more and more obvious that it's all about greed, man, and money. Just follow the money, and you'll figure out what's going on. So,
Wow.
yep.
All right. Well, our hour is up. So anyway, Chris, thank you for taking time and joining us this afternoon,
You're welcome.
evening. And we look forward to having you on maybe later on down the road, Chris.
Cool.
So
Appreciate it. Thanks
your
for having
insight.
me.
No, thanks for being on. Your insight is, people need to hear this. People need to hear the real deal behind the industry of what really is going on. And so, best thing to do, keep yourself healthy by doing your own research. You are your best physician. You are your best healthcare provider. Take advantage of the person that you know, which is you, and spend that time wisely in researching about you. Don't put the research onto somebody who is looking to make a profit off of you being treated with big pharma. So that's all I got to say. Brian, how do you want to wrap it up? What do you got to share before we call it a day?
Oh no, this has been very interesting. Yeah. Oh, I did want to ask, how did you guys find each other?
Chris,
how did we
actually,
find each other?
through another friend of ours, Steve and Alec. I don't even know how you connected them, but Steve is a ministry partner of ours. We've done a couple of shows together on that side of the fence.
Wow.
And then Chris was doing a Facebook Live or some show the other day. It popped over my thing, and I was listening to it, and he's telling this story, which I never knew. And I'm like, so I texted Chris and said, Chris, Chris called me. So he called me, and I said, man, you got to tell me this story about your dad. And he goes, yeah, man, I'll be glad to. And he shared it with me. I said, man, I got to have you on our show this Wednesday. This needs to be heard.
Awesome.
This is great.
That's what I love doing the videos, because like you never know who will see it, and like what part of like your testimony, which is just your story, will like resonate with somebody. So everybody needs to tell their story, because everybody has one. So
yeah, and it's good to get this out there so more people can hear it.
exactly. Awesome.
All right, everybody. Well, until next week, have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay out of a hospital.
Yeah.
We'll see you. Take care, everybody.